Hello everyone, ready for a new story? Don't forget to subscribe if you like our work, please. Some stories belong to the past. Some are yet to come. Some exist in worlds we can only imagine. Here, every story, from history to fantasy, from reality to the unknown, finds its voice. Welcome to Echoes Beyond Time.
Before time, before stars, before any world had a name, there was only Eru Ilúvatar, the One. In the timeless halls beyond all places, he held within himself the secret fire, the power that can turn thought into being. From his mind he imagined companions, the Ainur, the Holy Ones, each a living idea, each with a voice and a will. Some were vast and solemn, some quick and curious. None were alike, but all were true to a part of Ilúvatar's thought. Ilúvatar spoke, "Let us make a great music." He gave them a theme, a melody as soft as breath and as wide as oceans. The Ainur began to sing. Their voices rose and wove together until sound became a sea of colour and form. One shaped the feeling of wind, another the patience of stone, another the freedom of waves. It was harmony, living harmony, but among the Ainur was the mightiest, Melkor. He had wandered far into the void seeking the secret fire for himself. He did not find it, yet the desire to create alone had filled him with pride. In the music he wove his own theme, loud and hot, full of storm and will. The song shuddered. Ilúvatar did not silence him. Instead he lifted a second theme, deeper, calmer, carrying pity and strength. Melkor fought it with harsher noise, and again Ilúvatar answered, rising a third theme, softer than dawn, threaded with sorrow and hope, foretelling the coming of the children of Ilúvatar, elves and men. Elves. At last Ilúvatar raised his hand and all sound ceased. "Behold your music," he said. Before them opened a vision, a world round and bright with clouds and seas, mountains and dark places, and a long history moving like a river. The Ainur saw how their notes had become lands and seasons, wind and rain. They also saw the harm Melkor's discord would cause, and how the higher themes would answer it. Then Ilúvatar spoke the word that made the vision real. Let it be. The secret fire entered that world and kept it burning at the heart of being. Some of the Ainur chose to enter this new reality to shape it from within. Those who came became bound to the world's life and limits. The greatest among them were called the Valar, the powers of the world. Their many helpers were the Maiar. Manwë, lord of air and winds, the king of Arda. On the snowy peak of Tanacatil, he would later sit with his wife, Varda, the star kindler. Varda made the first stars blaze with clarity. Elves would love her name forever. Ulmo, lord of waters, needed no palace. The oceans were his halls. Ole, master of substance, hammered the bones of the earth. Yavanna, giver of fruits, sang seeds awake. Forests listened to her still. Nienna, lady of pity, turned grief into wisdom. Her tears heal. Orome, the hunter, loved shadowed woods and rode the pale horse Naha. Mandos, whose true name is Namo, kept the halls of the dead. His wife, Vairi, wove the world's story into tapestries. Lorien, also Irmo, tended the gardens of dreams. His wife, Esther, healed weariness. Tulkas, last to arrive, was the laughing champion, swift and strong. His wife, Nessa, danced across the grass. Around them moved countless Maiar, Eönwë, herald of Manwë, Ilmare, handmaid of Varda, Ossa and Uinen of the seas, Olorin, who would be known as Gandalf, Kurumo, Saruman, Iwendil, Radagast, and Myron, a brilliant craftsman who became Sauron. Some Maiar fell with Melkor and became Balrogs, spirits of fire chained to his will. When the Ainur entered the newborn world, it was hot and raw, fires under the ground, oceans without shores. The Valar began to shape it. Manwë set the airs in order. Ulmo made the waters find their beds. Ole raised mountain roots and laid down metals and gems. Yavanna called the first greens from the soil. Melkor also came. He claimed the world as his own, for he heard his notes echo in it. Where Orlé raised mountains, Melkor broke them. Where Yavanna grew forests, he burned them. Where Ulmo calmed seas, he stirred storms. So began the first war of the Valar. The world shook. Continents heaved, seas boiled, and the sky flashed. Then Tulkas arrived, last of the Valar, swift as a gale and laughing into battle. He wrestled Melkor beneath fuming heavens, and Melkor, shaken, fled the world into the outer dark. With their foe gone, the Valar healed what they could. They calmed the waters, lifted lands, and in the center of a great lake, they made their first home. Almarin. Gardens bloomed, halls were raised, peace had a home at last. Yet the world was dim, only starglow and a gentle half-light. The Valar desired true day. Orla forged 2 colossal pillars, taller than any mountain, one far north, one far south. Varda set upon them 2 vast lamps of living flame. In the north burned Ilúin, blue, white, and cool. In the south, Ormal, golden and warm. When both were kindled, their mingled light bathed all lands. Rivers grew clear, forests stood straight, birds learned song. This was the spring of Arda, the first great flowering of the world. For long ages uncounted the Valar rejoiced. They walked beneath twin lights, and all they shaped prospered. Tulkas took Nessa to wife. Laughter and dancing echoed around Almarin. But Melkor had not abandoned the world forever. In silence he slipped back into, unseen by the powers, and crept to the far north. There he deepened Utumno and heaved up the iron mountains like a black crown around it. Cold and rot seeped southward again, faint but real. In the west he prepared a mighty outwork, Angband, a bastion to guard against any assault from the Valar. In time, he would give it to his lieutenant Mairon, already drifting away from Orla's service, who would become Sauron. The Valar's joy dulled but did not end. The lamps still shone. Almaren still sang. Then came the night Melkor chose to strike. Tulkas slept, resting from long labours after his wedding feast. The powers were at peace. From the north, Melkor fell upon the pillars. Ilúin cracked like thunder and poured white fire across the world. Ormal tore open and spilled gold flame into the seas. The earth's bones groaned. Waters leapt their shores. Mountains sank, and others rose. Almaren was destroyed, its gardens drowned, its halls ripped by storm. In a single cataclysm, the spring of Arda ended. Where the northern lamp had stood, the lore remembers a vast inland sea, Helkar, hollowed by flood and heat. On its far eastern bay lay Cuiviénen, the water of awakening, where the elves would one day open their eyes beneath Varda's stars. Far to the south, where Ormal had shone, ancient memory speaks of the Sea of Ringshil. The Valar fought to quiet the world, Ulmo driving back the wild waters, Manwë stilling the storms, Orlé shoring up shattered lands. But Melkor withdrew behind the Iron Mountains and held the north in terror. From Utumno and Angband his darkness thickened and spread. The powers looked eastward across the ruined Middle-earth and knew they could not hold it now. So they turned to the far west, to shores untouched by the lamp's ruin. There they would make a refuge for the light, and from strength restored, answer the shadow in its time. There, upon a wide untouched plain, they founded the land that would one day be spoken of in whispers, Valinor. They shaped its plains and rivers. They carved the Pelori Mountains, an impossibly tall wall protecting their realm from the shadowed east. Behind that wall they built the shining city of Valmar, where each Valar raised a dwelling cast from the essence of their own nature. But without the 2 lamps, even Valinor stood in half-darkness. The world needed a new source of light, and that is where our true tale begins. Grief weighed heavily on Yavanna, mother of all growing things. The lamps had shattered, forests had drowned, and many creatures she hoped would fill the world were gone before their first dawn. She went to Manwë and said, "Let me bring forth a new light, one that cannot be toppled by iron or hatred." Manwë listened. He called for Varda, the Lady of the Stars, and Nienna, the Lady of Compassion, whose tears heal the earth. Together beneath the open sky, on a small green mound before the western gates of Valmar, they wove the greatest act of creation since the world's beginning. Nienna knelt and let her tears fall into the soil. Varda gathered shimmering echoes of ancient starlight, and Yavanna sang, a song drawn from the first music of creation, deep, resonant, and filled with longing for a world unbroken. From the soil nourished by tears and song, two shoots emerged. Slowly, gracefully they rose. The first, silver as starlight on water, grew into Telperion, the elder tree. Its leaves were a pale silver on the surface, and dark beneath. Its dew, shining cold and pure, was gathered into silver basins. Its light was cool and soft, yet impossibly radiant. The second, golden and warm, grew into Laurelin, the younger tree. Its leaves were edged with gold that glowed like the first day of creation. Drops of golden light fell from its blossoms like radiant honey. The two trees alternated their radiance. When Telperion reached its full silver light, Laurelin was dim. Then silver faded, and golden light began to glow. At their meeting, when both lights softly mingled, Valinor shone with a beauty beyond mortal words. These cycles became the first calendar. The years of the trees had begun. Valinor flourished. But Middle-earth lay dark, quiet, and dangerous, and in the far north, Melkor was already stirring. While the Valar healed Valinor, Melkor retreated to the distant, frozen north of Middle-earth. There he carved caverns into the bones of the world and built Utumno, a fortress of unimaginable depth. Utumno was not a castle. It was a nightmare continent beneath the earth. Caverns the size of cities, pits of fire hot enough to melt mountains, chambers of ice so cold they froze stone, spirits bound and twisted into shapes of terror, creations born of cruelty, beasts, monsters, shadow things. And because one fortress was never enough for his hunger, Melkor raised a second citadel further west, Angband, the Hells of Iron. There he placed Sauron, once Emir of Aule, now the master of deception and Melkor's most faithful lieutenant. Middle-earth lay in twilight and fear. Creatures vanished, forests grew silent. Strange shadows moved in places untouched by wind, and all of this was preparation. Melkor wanted the children of Ilúvatar for himself. He knew they were close to awakening. Inside Valinor, under the radiance of the trees, Varda felt the world shifting. A time was coming, the long-awaited moment when the first children would awaken. To prepare the skies for them, she gathered the purest light from the silver dew of Telperion and the golden drops of Laurelin, and shaped new stars, brighter than any seen before. She set them in patterns to mark beginnings and endings. Valasirka, the sickle of the Valar, high in the north. A warning to Melkor that justice would one day reach even him. Menelmacar, the warrior constellation bearing sparks of war yet to come. Countless other stars arranged in harmonies only the Valar could fully understand. The heavens blazed like a new creation, and under that new starlight, destiny unfolded. In the far eastern lands, beside the waters of Cuiviénen, the first elves opened their eyes. They saw no sun, no moon, only the reflection of Varda's stars dancing in the water. Their first breath was starlight. Their first step was upon soft ancient soil, and their first word was spoken in wonder. They named themselves Quendi, the speakers, for they believed speech was their unique gift. They lived by the water in peace, singing to the stars, crafting simple tools, exploring the forests and shores around them, learning love, friendship, and memory. Over time, they gathered under leaders, Ingwe, gentle and wise, whose people loved harmony and peace. Finwë, curious and brave, whose people sought knowledge. Elve and Olwe, two brothers who led the largest host, lovers of music and rivers. But their joy was tempered by fear, because Melkor had discovered them first. Travelers went missing. Footprints appeared where none had walked. Whispers echoed between trees where no wind stirred. Under torture, shadow corruption, and generation after generation of breeding in darkness, they became twisted, ruined creatures. The mockery of elves. The first orcs. And it was the moment when the Valar could no longer stand aside. Orome, the great hunter, loved Middle-earth more than any Valar save Ulmo. He rode often across its forests, fighting Melkor's beasts. One night, beneath Varda's brilliant stars, he heard something he had never heard in Middle-earth: singing. He approached carefully, Nahar's hooves glowing silver in the dark, and he found the elves by the water, tall, fair, filled with wonder, weary with fear. The elves fled at first. They believed he was the rider of their nightmares, but Orome's radiance soothed them. He spoke to them gently, learned their language, and saw in them a beauty deeper than any the Valar had imagined. He returned to Valinor with the news: the firstborn are awake. The Valar gathered in council. Melkor had corrupted the world. He had twisted beasts and spirits. He had taken the first children. He threatened all elves yet to be born. It was time. Manwë decreed, "We go to war." Thus began the greatest battle of the world's early ages. The War of the Powers. The Valar marched across Middle-earth, and the world shook. Orome led, hunting Melkor's creations with terrible wrath. Tulkas, strongest of all, ran across plains like a living storm. Ulmo flooded rivers and shattered icy fortresses. Orlé raised mountains and broke the walls of Melkor's strongholds. Manwë summoned storms that tore the sky. Yavanna and Nienna shielded living things where they could, mourning every loss. Melkor unleashed everything: legions of newly bred orcs, packs of wolves, beasts, corrupted creatures, spirits wreathed in shadow and flame. The first Balrogs. Earthquakes, storms, fire, and ice reshaped the world. At last, the Valar reached Utumno, the oldest and darkest pit in Arda. They broke its gates. They tore through its dungeons. They descended into its roots. There, surrounded by the ruins of his own hatred, Melkor faced them. Tulkas grappled him directly. Melkor's rage was vast, but his power was scattered, spread across his creatures, his fortresses, his corruption. Tulkas threw him down. All brought forth the mighty chain Ainur forged long before. Melkor was bound, chained, silenced. He who had broken the world was carried out of Utumno in humiliation and taken westward to Valinor for judgment. Utumno was sealed. Angband survived as a seed of future evil. Sauron escaped. But for a time, just a time, peace returned. Orome returned to Cuiviénen and told the elves, "Melkor is chained. The world is safer. Will you come with me to the land of the Valar, where the two trees shine?" The elves were divided. Some longed for light they had never seen. Some feared leaving their home. Some trusted the Valar. Some mistrusted every power. Those who agreed to the journey became the Eldar. Those who refused remained behind as the Avari. When the War of the Powers finally ended, the world was still shaking from it. In the far north, the great fortress of Utumno, Melkor's oldest and mightiest stronghold, had fallen. Its endless pits, frozen vaults, and cavernous halls had been broken, cracked, or collapsed by the power of the Valar. Many of Melkor's creatures were destroyed. Fiends made of shadow and flame, twisted spirits, monsters and great beasts. Others fled into deep places of the world, hiding like venom under stone. But one thing was certain: Melkor himself had been captured. The Valar bound him in the chain called Ainur. This chain was no ordinary metal. It was crafted by Ulla, the smith of the Valar, with knowledge deeper than the metals of the earth. Ainur was made to restrain a being whose will could bend mountains. The tighter Melkor struggled, the more unbreakable it became. He who once walked the music of the Ainur as one of the mightiest, now was dragged in chains across the lands. The Valar carried him from the ruins of the north all the way to Aman, the Blessed Realm in the west, where they dwelt under the light of the two trees of Valinor. Their city, Valimar, and its surrounding plains glowed with a light that was soft yet powerful, unlike anything in Middle-earth. They brought Melkor into that land of pure harmony, this being who hated harmony more than anything. For him, the light of Valinor was not comfort, it was torture. Every ray reminded him of what he had tried to destroy and failed to corrupt. There, in the west, the Valar passed judgment. Melkor was handed over to Mandos, the doomsman of the Valar, whose halls lie outside of time as elves and men know it. The decree was that Melkor would be imprisoned for 3 great ages, 3 vast spans of time, not clearly defined but long enough that empires could rise and fall many times over. In the Halls of Mandos, there were no iron bars or obvious chains. Melkor's prison was something worse: absolute powerlessness and endless time to think. He could not act, only remember. He could not dominate, only hate. Some say that in those ages, the last fragments of anything noble or repentant in him were burned away. His pride was not broken. It was condensed into something sharper and more poisonous. While he lay in darkness, the world outside changed. The Elves, the firstborn children of Ilúvatar, had awakened beside the waters of Cuiviénen in Middle-earth. The Valar, fearing what Melkor might do to them if he were free, had fought the War of the Powers partly for their sake. Now, with Melkor bound, the Valar turned their full attention to these new beings. They decided to bring many of the elves to Aman into the safety and beauty of the Blessed Realm. 3 great hosts came west. The Vanyar, fair and golden-haired, most loyal to Manwë and Varda. The Noldor, the deep elves, lovers of craft, knowledge, and creation. The Teleri, the sea elves, slower and more reluctant, drawn to the shores and songs of the waves. Under the light of the 2 trees, Telperion and Lorelin, the elves grew in wisdom and skill. Cities rose, Tirion upon the green hill of Tuna, white-walled and crowned with the Tower of Ingwe, and later the House of Fëanor. The world seemed peaceful. A golden age. But far away in silence, Melkor's hatred matured. He watched. He waited. When the 3 ages of his punishment were at last completed, Melkor presented a new face to the Valar. He humbled himself. He spoke gently. He claimed repentance. He said he regretted the ruin of the world, the war, the darkness he had spread. He offered to help heal what he had broken. Manwë, king of the Valar, who embodied mercy and pure good, believed that repentance was possible. He knew the music of the Ainur, and in that music no note was meant to be forever lost. He could not fully grasp a will that would choose evil eternally. So, by Manwë's decision, Melkor was released from Angainor. He was allowed to walk again in Valinor, under watch, under suspicion from some, but still free. He roamed the Blessed Realm wearing a mask. To many he appeared mild and wise. He spoke honeyed words. He visited the elves, especially the Noldor, and praised their talents. But inside, nothing had changed. He still desired power over all things. He still hated the Valar for chaining him. And now, he envied the elves more than ever, especially the Noldor, who were growing into masters of craft and thought, something he had always wanted to bend to his own will. Among the Noldor, one elf shone brighter than all others, Fëanor, son of Finwë, High King of the Noldor. Fëanor's mind burned like a star. He crafted works that even Orly admired. His greatest creations were 3 jewels, 3 perfect crystals, the Silmarils. Inside each Silmaril, Fëanor captured the mixed light of both trees, silver of Telperion and gold of Lorelin, pure, living, unmarred. They were not just jewels, they were small worlds of light, singing with the memory of creation. When Melkor saw the Silmarils, he desired them more than anything he had ever desired before. All his earlier greed for realms, for dominion, for worship suddenly focused into one narrow, terrible hunger. To possess the Silmarils, he did not only want to hold them, he wanted to claim them, to twist them into symbols of his triumph over the Valar and the Elves. But he could not simply steal them. They were guarded, revered, and, most of all, trusted only to Fëanor and Finwë. So Melkor chose a subtler weapon: lies. He began among the Noldor, walking quietly in their streets, talking in small groups, leaning closer, whispering. He said things like, Why do you, the greatest of all elves, live always under the rule of the Valar? Do you not see? They have brought you here to keep an eye on you. Middle-earth is wide, still empty, waiting for your kingships. But you are kept here in a cage of light. Not all Noldor believed him, but his words settled like dust in the corners of their minds. They began to wonder, why did we leave our first home? Why can we not return freely? Are we guests or prisoners? He aimed these thoughts especially at Fëanor. Melkor knew Fëanor's pride, his fierce love of freedom, his possessiveness over his creations. So he added another poison. He hinted that Fingolfin, Fëanor's half-brother, son of Finwë by his second wife Indis, might try to usurp his place. He suggested that the Valar might secretly prefer Fingolfin, calmer, more obedient, more reasonable. These were not completely baseless, they were twisted half-truths. Some elves did feel closer to Fingolfin. Some admired his steadiness more than Fëanor's fire. Melkor did not invent all conflict, he simply inflamed what was already there. The tension grew until it finally erupted. One day, armed and blazing with rage, Fëanor confronted Fingolfin. He drew his sword, standing in front of him in Tirion, and threatened him. He accused him of wanting to steal his place as the eldest son and rightful heir of Finwë. This was unthinkable among the elves, for one elf to draw a blade on another in Valinor itself. The Valar summoned Fëanor to judgment. In their court, surrounded by the light of the trees and the gaze of all powers, the truth behind his anger was sought out. There Mandos spoke plainly. He revealed that the source of all these suspicions and divisions was Melkor's whispering. Fëanor realized he had been manipulated. Shame and fury burned in him, but his pride didn't allow him to completely bow. The Valar decreed that Fëanor must leave Tirion for a time. He was banished to the fortress city of Formenos, far to the north of Valinor. There he would dwell in semi-exile, taking with him his closest followers, his treasures and, most importantly, the Silmarils. Finwë, his father, chose to go with him, leaving Tirion and the rest of his people under the rule of Fingolfin. So, because of Melkor's lies, the Noldor were now divided. Fëanor and Finwë in Formenos, Fingolfin ruling in Tirion, and a shadow of distrust between their houses. Melkor had achieved his first goal, fracture, but now he had another advantage. The Silmarils, the objects of his greatest desire, were no longer in the very heart of Valinor. They were in a more isolated place, guarded only by the Noldor themselves. After Mandos revealed his role in the unrest, Melkor no longer dared to walk openly among the Valar. Suspicion had fallen upon him. Eyes followed him, so he vanished. He slipped away from the sight of the Valar, traveling south and then east, hiding in valleys, in shadows under cliffs, far from Valimar. For a while, even the Valar did not know where he had gone. In that wandering, he found another ancient darkness. The monstrous spider-like being known as Ungoliant. Ungoliant dwelt in the deep south in a land of shadows called Avathar, beneath the southern mountains of Amman. She was a creature whose origin is mysterious, perhaps a spirit that turned to darkness, but now she was something far more terrible, a devourer of light. She wove nets of inky shadows so dense that even the light of the stars could not penetrate them. Her hunger was endless. She drank light and spun darkness. Melkor came to her in the form of a dark, towering figure wearing a cloak of shadows. He offered her a bargain. If she aided him in striking at the Valar, he would feed her more light and treasure than she could imagine. He promised that she could drink the very heart of Valinor's radiance. Ungoliant hesitated, but her hunger was stronger than her fear. She agreed. Together they wove a cloak of darkness thicker than any night. They climbed the northern slopes of Taniktil, the high mountain of Manwë, where the winds usually tore away every cloud. But Ungoliant's darkness was not like normal shadow. It clung, it smothered, it hid even from the sight of Manwë. At that time, the Valar had called a great feast in Valimar. They wished to heal the divisions among the Noldor and restore unity. The Vanyar, Noldor, and many of the Teleri had gathered. Music and laughter filled the air. The trees shimmered in their cycle of mingling light, silver turning to gold, gold to silver. And just in that moment of joy and apparent peace, Melkor and Ungoliant struck. Hidden in that crushing darkness, they moved silently to the green hill of Ezelahar, where the two trees stood. Melkor rushed forward and hewed at the trunks of Telperion and Laurelin with his black spear. The trees groaned and bled sap like liquid light. Ungoliant flung herself upon them, and with each bite, she drank their light. She sucked the wells of their power dry, swallowing every last gleam until both trees withered and died, two dead husks where once the light of the world had been rooted. Valinor was plunged into absolute blackness. This was not simple darkness, like the night under stars. This was the suffocating emptiness woven by Ungoliant, where even sound seemed trapped. In the chaos, while the Valar cried out, trying to understand what had happened, Melkor and Ungoliant fled north, hidden inside that same shroud of shadow. They moved swiftly while the Blessed Realm was still stunned. Their target now was Formenos. At Formenos, in the north, were the House of Fëanor, the treasures of the Noldor, and, most importantly, the Silmarils, locked in a chest of crystal and steel. There also was Finwë alone, for Fëanor himself was not there at that very moment. Melkor arrived at the gates of Formenos with the darkness of Ungoliant swirling about him. Finwë, High King of the Noldor, though unarmed against such power, did not flee. He stood in defense of his house and his people. But against Melkor, who now was filled with fury and malice, the Elf King had no chance. Melkor slayed Finwë before his own doors. This was the first time that the blood of an elf was spilled by violence in the Blessed Realm. Melkor broke into the vaults of Formenos, seized many gems and treasures, but above all, he took the 3 Silmarils. Their pure light burned in his hands, but he clutched them anyway. He and Ungoliant then fled across the grinding ice and bitter lands, back toward Middle-earth. As they journeyed, Ungoliant grew even more enormous and more hungry. The jewels Melkor had taken shone inside the darkness of her webs, but she wanted more. When they reached the northern lands of Middle-earth, Melkor tried to turn away and go his own way, toward his old northern strongholds. But Ungoliant blocked his path. She demanded the reward he had promised. Melkor, not yet ready to face her, gave her many of the lesser treasures, the gold, the other gems stolen from Finwë. She devoured their light, growing yet more huge and bloated with black shadow. But when she demanded the Silmarils, Melkor refused. They were now more than mere jewels. They were the proof of his victory over the Valar and Fëanor, the symbols of light that he had stolen. Ungoliant wrapped him in her webs and began to crush him. Her darkness tightened like bands of iron. Melkor choked. He, the great rebel of the world, was nearly destroyed by the very ally he had chosen. In his agony, he let out a scream, a terrible, vast cry of despair and rage. This cry echoed through the roots of the mountains and the deep places of the world. In those depths, in forgotten caverns and vaults of the north, lay some of his oldest servants, the Balrogs, spirits of fire wrapped in shadow, who had fled the war of the powers and hidden. They heard his call. Armed with their whips of flame, they rushed to their master's aid. They fell upon Ungoliant, beating her back with fire and terror. She spat darkness and fled, screaming into the south, into lands where no one cared to follow. Some say she eventually devoured herself, eaten by her own hunger. He then went to the old northern stronghold of Angband, which had been a secondary fortress in the days before Utumno fell. Now he rebuilt it greater than before. He raised the peaks of Thangorodrim, 3 smoking iron-crowned mountains above the gates of Angband. He filled the pits with furnaces. He called all his remaining servants to him, orcs, trolls, fell beasts, and other corrupted creatures. There he set himself up again as a dark lord over the north. The Silmarils he set in an iron crown which he wore upon his head. But the Silmarils were not made for his hand or his will. Their pure light burned his flesh and his spirit. The pain was constant, like fire pressed into his skull. Yet he would not part with them. His pride was greater than his pain. Melkor, gasping but alive, was free again. He still held the Silmarils. Meanwhile, back in Valinor, the Valar struggled in the darkness. They discovered the dead trees. They understood that Melkor had escaped and that Finwë had been slain and the Silmarils stolen. Yavanna, the giver of fruits, tried to heal the trees, but they were beyond full recovery. From the very last sap and the last flower, later, the Valar would create the sun and moon, but for now the age of the two trees was ended. News came to Fëanor in Formenos. His father was dead. His greatest works, the Silmarils, had been taken by Melkor. The grief and fury that filled him were beyond words. He felt betrayed by fate, by the Valar, perhaps even by the world itself. He gathered the Noldor and spoke to them with a fire that was almost painful to hear. He blamed Melkor, of course, but he also blamed the Valar for failing to protect Finwë and Valinor. He claimed that the Noldor had been brought into this land of supposed safety only to be struck down without the chance to defend their own. In a speech that would mark the turning point of elven history, Fëanor roused the Noldor to rebellion and exile. He urged them to leave Valinor, to go back to Middle-earth, to make war upon Melkor, and to reclaim the Silmarils with their own hands. And it is here, in the heat of that anger, that Fëanor gave Melkor a new name. To the Noldor he said, "This being is no longer just Melkor. That is the name he bore among the Ainur. Now he is Morgoth, the black foe of the world." From that moment on, among elves and later men, this became his true name. Melkor was the name he had been given in the beginning, when he still walked in the music of creation. Morgoth was the name he earned through his own choices, the name of a destroyer, the enemy of all life in Arda. And so the third part of Melkor's story ends with that transformation. Not a change of nature, but a change of title and truth. From now on, we are not only speaking of Melkor, the rebel Valar. We are speaking of Morgoth, the dark enemy, crowned with burning jewels, sitting in Angband beneath the shadow of Thangorodrim, while in the west, the Noldor prepare to leave the Blessed Realm and bring war into the lands of Middle-earth. That is how the light of the trees was destroyed, how the first Elf King was slain in Valinor, how the Silmarils were stolen, and how the most powerful of the Ainur earned the name that would haunt the First Age, Morgoth.
Thank you for watching. Every story leaves an echo, and this one has reached its end. If you enjoyed the journey, give it a like. It truly helps us grow. Tell us in the comments what story you'd like to hear next, from the past, the future, or a world beyond. And don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss the next echo on Echoes Beyond Time.